This is Coda Radio, episode 176 for October 26th, 2015. Hi everyone, and welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This show is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Linux Academy. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our excellent host who's charged up, probably, I'm guessing on caffeine. It's Mr. Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
No, sir. I had to cut caffeine out.
Really? Because of the heart?
Yeah.
So, what do you use to give you a little extra boost?
Well, I use feel-good movies. And Chris, have we ever done a movie recommendation on the air before?
I don't think so, no.
Can I recommend something for you and the whole family?
Yeah, I would love the psychological insight into this, actually.
Gem and the... Oh, that's right. Yes, Gem and the Hologram.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, Gem... I've never even heard of this. I've never even Gem and the Hologram. What the...
Cartoon, if you remember.
And the Holograms, I believe, with an S.
Yes, yep.
Is this actually playing in theaters?
Absolutely. I saw it opening night, which was like last Thursday.
So you're giving me like an in-theater movie recommendation right now. This is brand new on the Coda Radio program.
I hate the movies. I hate going to see movies.
We are breaking new ground. All right, well, so there you go. Gem and the Holograms. It tells you it's got a 20% on Rotten Tomato and a 44% on Metacritic.
You know, it's like many of those famous artists that are not appreciated in their time, but it's excellent.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, whew. Yeah, I think it's, I guess so. Well, yeah, good morning. The chat room is, have you noticed this morning the chat room is really tired and quiet?
Yeah, they seem to be a little out of it.
Yeah. And you know, the other thing is it's like, I think from time to time, when we start like right on the nose, I think it throws them off. Because
I'm usually like 10, 20 minutes late.
Yeah, people trickle in, and then they're like, oh yeah, right, okay, shoot. They started on time. It's like we throw them. Like I just got a message from Ange right now, asking me about a scheduling thing in November. Like she even throws her off that we've started the show already. See, she's surprised. She's asking me calendar questions right now on the air.
You know,
because she figures.
Yeah, and I was even on the phone before the show started, which is usually a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, usually it's a recipe for being late. That's true. I had a whole playlist all queued up, but instead, I was going to get a little playtime in with my Steam controller. You know, I got the Steam... I'm not going to talk about too much about it. You know, I got the Steam controller.
Oh, what an excellent way to spend money.
Oh, no, it was actually... You know what? Money-wise, the Steam controller, $40. $40 for the Steam controller. Or, I'm sorry, $50, $49.99. For a really nice, sturdy, really well-built controller. It's new, though. It's early days.
Early adoption.
Yeah, but it's, well, you know, I had to try it. All right. Well, Mr. Dominic, so we have quite a smattering of topics today to get into. You know, I was just telling the chat room, who was actually chatting more before we started the show, strangely enough. I was just telling the chat room that I got a push notification, the kind that I love this morning. I got one of those push notifications that says, Mr. Michael Dominic has created a doc, which means you're thinking on something. As I'm driving into work today, I go, oh boy, he's thinking on something. We're going to have quite the show. So I love the start where you say thin design or branded. And, you know, actually, I was going in a different direction, and then I realized you're talking about something else completely different. So thin design or branded. Open my mind up, Mr. Dominic.
I'm just curious what you think I was thinking about. But yeah, so, you know, I like material in iOS 7 design because I'm, you know, a little minimalist there. I've got, you know, sitting in a white room with no curtains and just a little bit of bezel. You are talking about the actual like hardware then? No, I'm talking about software design.
Oh, okay.
You know, because I've been spitballing a bunch of like app ideas, doing prototypes, things like that, and it keeps coming down to, well, I could just do this kind of with, you know, the Android 5 or the iOS 7, and I know, you know, 6 and 9 are out, style widgets, right? Because the design hasn't changed much since 7 to 9 and 5 to 6. You know, or I can really brand it, right? Like give it its own look and feel.
Yeah, its own real like sort of note. Like so one of the things is also it also makes it real easy then to move that between platforms, not to.
Right. So like a great example, we keep talking about podcast apps, right? Like Overcast, just like a great case study in this. Overcast is basically iOS 7 widgets with color skinning, right?
Yeah, yep, pretty minimal.
I mean, make them orange. You're good to go. There's a few custom button images, but not a lot there. While Pocket Cast is a little more designed.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pocket Cast looks like the Pocket Cast app on Android and on iOS.
On every platform,
Yeah.
with the weird exception of Windows Phone, but I don't even think they support that anymore.
Yeah, that I've never actually used it there. But on Android and iOS, it's really identical. And it's nice that way.
Yeah, it's funny because I wonder what. Like, I could see obviously there's this whole aspect of maybe I could get away without hiring a designer if I just do this kind of, Android Studio widget style, right?
Yeah, the very sort of generic.
By the book, right?
Yeah.
By the book material design. But if you ever want to go cross-platform, it does kind of become harder.
Well, it kind of limits, yeah, and also, I think the other thing it does, and this is kind of the unfortunate thing, is I'm not here to say that so the iOS 8 and 9 look is more understated than Material Design is. Material Design has a very clear,
A little more pop, yeah.
I think it has a clear Google branding sort of weaved into it. I think Material Design in a way is Google branded. It represents Google, and so there is sort of a look that comes with that, and I'm not actually convinced that Material Design is super great. I don't think it's all that bad, but I feel like it kind of comes across as maybe a little overhyped. And so the problem is yeah, it solves some of your problems, but then it locks you into something that I think is going to look really dated in about, well, even another year or so.
Well, there's a whole the whole Fisher-Price design kind of aspect of Material, and frankly iOS 7 design.
Well,
all the bright colors and
yeah, there's that. And for me, and I linked to an article in the show notes over on User Experience Stack Exchange, and where there's a pretty good conversation going on about what are some of the disadvantages of Material Design, and one of them that I kind of tend to agree with is the animations they're another. Okay, now some of this stuff is again more nitpicky than other things, so this is on the nitpicky side. Their animations, they always suck. They don't look quite right. You can see the frame get cut off in the button. It's like, why doesn't it just completely go out of the button? Why does the animation get cut off? And why am I seeing the borders of the animation on the button itself? And it's overdone. It's distracting. If you're looking at the video version right now, it's flashing too much. That's too much to watch. A couple of other things that really bother me, and you'll notice this in like the calendar app where you're trying to set a reminder or label something.
Yeah.
You can't tell. You're really unable to discern between interactive elements in a list. So you can't tell if you can tap on the label or the date. You just kind of have to tap it. There's no kind of user cue about what's touchable. Now, not a big deal, but it is a real kind of pain in the butt when you're really in a go mode, or you're walking and talking, or God forbid you're driving and trying to look at your phone, something really stupid like that. It becomes a real usability nightmare. And then last but not least, and this is not a huge deal because you could blame other things for this too, but there is a lot of animations that come with Material Design, and some of them are quite nice, but some of them I still feel like I fail to see 30 frames per second all the time. And it almost, in a way, it's funny because it almost accentuates one of the limitations of the platform, because also not everybody's out there with a Snapdragon processor, 800 series or greater, right? There's a lot of people out there with some really old Android devices now running these Material apps, and those animations are a drain on their battery. Sometimes they're going at 15, 20 frames per second, best case. It just looks horrible when you see them. Like if you see one of, it's like you go get somebody that has like an S3 and have them use the Google Plus app.
Even a Moto G, like just watch it chug. I mean, one other aspect of this that I'm considering is, on my snappy little Nexus 5, right, which is still kind of old, but it's nice, right? If I ever get the Nexus P, or Nexus 6P rather, it's going to look super correct. A Material Designed app, Designed icon.
Yeah.
But how about like the vast majority of people who are running 4.4? you're the exception, and I know this is going to be a little flamey, but
Yeah. No, that's sort of
when
my.
I go into the Play Store, there are more non-modern Android apps, non-material Android apps, whatever term we prefer,
Yeah.
than there are just
They're
straight
definitely.
up.
I didn't really take off as much as I expected it to.
It
There's.
really didn't. Like Apple flipped the 7 flat designed Switch, and everybody was like, "Yes, sir."
Yeah.
On Android, it was like, "Yeah, but our stuff still compiles and works." So
I think one of the reasons it didn't take off perhaps is because of some of these performance issues on these lower devices, but also because people already went down a course of investing in their own branded design.
so that's what I was going to get at. Are you almost giving up your branding to Google at that point, or is that too harsh?
Well, couldn't you say the same thing about any look at Windows apps, right?
All right,
Or-
but look at the miserable failure that was.
Or honestly,
I'm just saying.
if you want to take this, just to stop talking about the proprietary systems for a second, let's take this to the Linux desktop.
Is that some sort of support group you go to?
If you make a really nice traditional GTK desktop app now with
Looks like
with
garbage.
client-side decorations and all that, it's very generic looking. You look at the Pictures app, you look at the Maps app, you look at all this stuff now, it's very, very generic. It's all going towards this one simple generic look.
Well, but that's the whole Mac problem, right? Most Mac apps look like standard Mac apps, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got a silver bar on top, and
Yeah, but in practice, I don't know if that really is true. I mean, all of the Apple apps look the same. But I mean, one of the things that jumps out at me, the reason why I say that is one of the things that jumps out at me is honestly, to me, OS X looks like a bit of it like a jumbled mess. First of all, the icons, I cannot believe, I'm just for a second, I can't believe how old the icons look on OS X. Seriously, this is not the year 2000 anymore. I mean, I get it. And then also, and I realize they were even updated semi-recently. And then second of all, I'm looking right now at one of the dude, I wish I could show you a picture. I am looking at this Mac here that is running for some of the production stuff, and not a single frickin' window looks the same. And I'll tell you what windows are open. There's a text edit window open over there. Okay, there is a soundboard window open.
Hello, everybody.
Over there. And then there's some interface controls for the mixer, all of which are skeuomorphic. Like, they even have scratches in the metal skeuomorphic.
Oh, yeah.
And then I have a Qt-based IRC client, which is really just a jumble of a mess under OS X. And it is really a hodgepodge over here. It is a dramatic hodgepodge.
Well, it's a mess, right? Because initially Mac design, modern Mac design was very metallic, right? You had that. And then we fell in love with leather, more leather.
And then I have next to it, I have a GNOME 3 desktop that honestly looks very streamlined. Everything, there is a here. So there's the I have the file manager here, and everything. Here's the terminal app. These all go together. All of these windows. I mean, honestly, I think the reason why it jumps out at me is it's something we harped on Linux for so long, and in some ways, the major proprietary platforms now are the largest offenders at it. Look at Android. It is the hugest offender of this. Windows itself, Windows 10 as a default platform, ships with like 3 different interfaces. You have the modern UI, which are now in windowed mode. You have the classic Windows interfaces, anything you jump down into and you're doing like control panel stuff, like, deep system settings, or like you're going into the MMC and you're doing anything like that, right? You have that kind of traditional Windows GDI type interface. And then now you have PowerShell too. Right, so the system ships. Oh, and then also there's this weird in-between UI, like for the new control panel, which is like an overlay on top of the old control panel, which is kind of touch, but kind of not. And so there is these like almost 4 different types of UIs that ship with Windows 10. The Mac OS X itself ships with a whole jumbled different mess of UIs.
Right. So are you suggesting then that developers should just conform to the UI guide and go with it?
No, I'm saying it's never going to happen. Because in all of the different platforms, it's still never happening. Even the only platform I could ever see this being maybe successful is on the watch.
Well, because less choices equals
yeah,
less.
and maybe like the set-top box. But on the phone, I think it's too late. I think that ship sailed, and also, I mean, what if you? I mean, I should show you this app. If you want to look it up, you can. It's the Apollo console. And they have like different racks that you snap into it if you guys want to. It's the Universal Apollo, Universal Audio. And you look at the different consoles, and those are all different windows on the Mac desktop. And they're all different. Like, they've literally gone and recreated these old classic pieces of audio equipment because that's what it emulates. And it's a jumbled mess. It looks so inconsistent, and also they've taken literally like knobs, and I have to turn knobs. Like it's really something. I should really take a picture of this for you, I suppose. But anyways, I will. I'll take a picture of it and I'll put it in the show notes because it's so ridiculous that I do kind of have to show it to you. My point is even on these platforms, the most controlled platforms, it never happened.
All right, but don't you you download an Android app and you see one that's not yet Material, and aren't you a little like,
I've never thought that though about Pocket Casts.
Well, Pocket. See that's my point, and that's kind of the question I'm posing here. Is it because Pocket Cast has developed its own design language, right? Its own brand.
It's good enough. It's good. It's well done. I don't think I really think of their brand so much. I don't come back and think, oh, this is Pocket Cast speaking to me. I think what crosses my mind is this is functional enough. This looks well enough for me to use it. I get it. And, to be honest, it's because in a lot of ways, I would say they ripped Material off in the ways that it kind of works. Like, you know what? I don't say that in a mean way. Okay, now that I've said that, I got to pull it up. So that way I Pocket Cast. And by the way, if you guys don't have if you don't have a pocket catcher and you are on, or a podcast catcher and you're on Android or iOS, this is a pretty good one.
Or even the web client's good.
Yeah, that's the other thing I really like about it. So, here's a couple of things that jump out at me. This top bar here, that's very Material design. The plus here, the dots, all this stuff, that's all this menu here. This is the good aspects of Material design that they took. Some of the animations are like their own implementation of it too. And the couple of things they even took from Material design here, this little hovering dot, is the plus dot and the down thing. I hate that. It's too ambiguous for me, and sometimes I don't know where it's at. Anyways, but they took a lot from Material design, and they just sort of essentially ripped off the best stuff, kept it, and I'm putting that in the nicest way, and then implement that across the web, across their Android app, and across the iOS app. And so I don't think of their brand so much as I just think of they looked at what are some of the best elements of design out there, and then what can they actually deliver on as a team. And they went with it. And it's sort of like the most beautiful style of compromise, I think. It's like the most practical style.
Interesting. So it sounds like your issue isn't really Material design. It's designers going crazy and being like, we have animations, let's use them.
It's the overdoing of it.
Let me give you another one, right? Remember when hamburger menus first came out? Like iOS 6?
Yes.
Right, before they were built in, you had to write your own freaking hamburger menu.
Yes.
I cannot tell you, I haven't seen, for about a year there, it was all hamburger menus all the time, right? Every wireframe I got, every pitch I got was all hamburger menus.
Yeah, everything goes in the hamburger menu. Solves all the problems. All usability problems have been solved.
Right, because instead of just not having 45 different things this app does, let's just throw it all in a side menu and scroll. Bam. Is it possible that Material's just a fad that never really caught on? Meaning that all these design things are just little trends, right?
No, because it is slowly catching on. And it's also, and here's why it's slowly catching on, this is also the reason I don't like it, is because it's so overstated. It is attached to Google now. It is part of the Android look. It's going to be what they go forward on. This was a huge thing for them, and this is what they're going to build on top of. And they're going to do it for a while, Mike. I think they're going to keep.
Oh no, that's very true. I mean, I know I was working on a pretty high profile Android app, and yeah, they straight up have their own brand. No.
Yeah. So their intention here, I think. So Google's intention is to really just keep doing this forever, because if you think about it, it's genius too, because if they could just get a good chunk of apps on iOS looking like this, and they can do that on their own in a big way with their own apps, because the Google app itself is extremely popular. Right. Google Voice, they actually just updated the Google Voice app. Oh my goodness! Finally, for the right resolution for the iPhone 6, they just updated. What? Yeah,
because I have it and it's still terrible. Hang on.
Yeah, they just released an update. Yeah, it's fantastic. And anyways, so that's my roundabout way of saying it behooves them to have a bunch of Material designed apps on other platforms, including Chrome OS, including iOS. I think they're going to just keep. I think it's really a brilliant strategy because you can also use a lot of these elements on the web too.
Right.
I just think, unfortunately, it's a little too overdone for my taste. It's too in your face. It's like
It's the glam rock of design paradigms. Really, it's like bam.
it is exactly what it is. It is a big company's first attempt at a bold design language, and they did exactly what of course they did because it's their first time doing this. They overreached. They overreached, and they probably should have been a little more humble in their approach and not so in your face with the language. I mean, go read it. Just go Google search.
Oh no, I've read the material design guidelines. Yeah, I mean, you can't almost be material, right? You're either there or you're not. It's pretty firm. It's a assertive design paradigm.
All right, so Mr. Dominic, I have homework for you. Okay, so go to Instagram.com. Okay.
I can do that. Wait,
okay.
Instagram.
Yep, and then goes to /Toe Fisher. Okay, TOPH.
Oh my God. Ooh, wow. Jennifer Lawrence's feed. Don't know how that got up there. Hang on.
Yeah. So there it is. There's the and of course because it's a crappy resolution, but I had to go this route because my Twitter API token thing is a joke right now, and so I can't actually tweet from my phone. It's embarrassing. Anyways, so I have up on the stream right now, and I'll try to remember to put this in the show notes. That's the different interfaces on the one desktop, just in a little shot that I can show you there.
That's fantastic.
Isn't that a thing? Isn't that a thing?
And so awesomely synthetic and crappy too.
I mean, I love the equipment, and to their credit, the reason they do this is because this stuff is supposed to work and sound exactly like the equipment it emulates.
Right.
So you could be you could have worked out in the field since the 70s, and you can sit down in front of this console and know exactly what knobs to turn.
Someone spent a hell of a lot of time doing this too.
There's you can't quite see in the picture, but there's literally scratch little etches in the metal and things like that to make it look slightly aged. It's good stuff. I'll try to embed that in the show notes for you guys because it's kind of funny, and it shows you. I think it just shows you how it doesn't really matter how would you describe Apple about this kind of thing? Extremely enthusiastic about their design on their operating system, and it just doesn't really matter.
Well, but Apple often, they go really hard into a new design and they kind of pull back.
Yeah, well, that's what Google's doing, I think, right now with Material.
Right.
And I just don't know exactly how they pull that back. If they do it quietly over time, or if it just naturally gets pulled back because people with some good taste, like people at Pocket Cast, only implement it so far, and then they kind of go, the old paradigm works a little better here. Maybe that's actually how it ends up happening in the Android ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't undersell, though, the whole inertia thing on Android as a whole. Again, let's avoid a flame war, but you don't see the rush to update, the rush to adopt the newness on Android, which I actually think is partially Google's fault, right? And I don't want to get into this conversation again, but, iOS developer, you have an app out there, iOS 9 is coming out in 3 weeks or whenever it came out, right? So you knew you'd have some percentage of your users would be good to go day one, day two. Android, I mean, is anybody seriously still already using Android 5 APIs? And I don't mean the new support library, right? I mean brand new stuff and hell, Android 6 just came out.
Yeah.
I'm just saying
yeah. It's funny because the other day I was covering a new Android phone on Tech Talk that's kind of compelling. And I was rattling off all the features. And look, it shipped with Android 5.1. And I just moved right on because it didn't click with me now that, now it's 6. And so then somebody says, Chris, I really like, they're thinking about switching to Ting, and they say, I really like the S6, but my wife and friends all have the iPhone, and I was thinking, and I have an S4 now. Should I get the S6 on Ting, or should I get the iPhone 6 on Ting? And I was like, well, I have the both, and so I go into it. And then the one thing that struck me about it is, as we wrapped up the conversation, I said, oh, and I guess you should know, there's a new version of the operating system out now that's not available for that phone yet, and I don't know when you're going to get it. And he said, well, what's this? And iOS 9? He's like, yeah, that's right. That's on the iPhone 6. I'm like, yeah, you can get that on the iPhone 6 right now. Like, huh. And, for him, that's a feature. You mean it doesn't even have I was like, yeah, that phone doesn't even have Android 6 yet. I mean, it probably will get it. I hope soon. But you know what else is interesting is this morning, because I keep getting prompted at the worst times I have this iPhone, which I have totally, completely destroyed. And I don't know if this will show up on camera. I'm gonna try to show it real quick. No, you can't see. But the complete corner has been destroyed. It's cracked all over, but it's still working. And so I've pretty much been using the S6 mostly. But I have the iPhone here for because that's where I have all the podcasts that I'm listening to, and it still makes calls. So I'm still getting some calls on it, and all of that. So I still have to carry it with me, and I keep getting prompted to install iOS
Yeah.
9.1, and I've said no later a couple of times. I'm like, geez, this thing's really aggressive about it. So
Yeah.
this morning I said later, and it popped up and said, well, how about if you're plugged into power at 11 p.m. tonight, I just automatically install it then. And I'm like,
Yep.
and then I said, okay, and I say yes, and it's like, okay, well, so now you're gonna need to agree to the EULA and a couple other things, pop, and now it's done. And so I just thought that is actually aggressively clever, like, and how. They're like, okay, you've been delaying this for like 2 days, bro. How about, look, 2 days, this is a long time in Apple land. Let's just get this thing scheduled. And so now I'm in the system settings, and I can go in here and I can cancel the auto install if I wanted to, but I think I'm just going to hit install now and just see what goes. I'm not hooked up into power. I'm not hooked up to power, so I'm feeling crazy. See what happens by the end of the show.
Do you know what this TalkTalk hack is?
Yeah.
Apparently, they arrested a 15-year-old, according to the chat room.
Well, yeah, the hack seems like it was painfully stupid. Like it was just a SQL injection, and then they got usernames and passwords and got into the back end of their website.
That barely counts.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
Wow.
it's been an embarrassing series of hacks recently. John Boehner, no, not John Boehner. Well, anyways, there's been a lot of different hacks and just really stupid stuff, a lot of accidental things. But Mr. Dominic, there are simple solutions to all of that. You know what that is?
Is it Linux Academy?
It could be, but no. Actually, this time I think this time, it's fix it yourself with DigitalOcean. Go out and roll. That's right. Go out and roll your own solution. That's right. Do it. You know what? Own Cloud. Put it up there yourself. Check it out for a little while, and then I'll tell you what. Sync thing. I've come back around now. Mr. Dominic, are you familiar with Dropbox?
I am indeed.
Yeah, now are you familiar with how expensive Dropbox is if you want a team folder?
Yeah, I am actually.
Yeah, so it's unbelievable. It's like $800 a year.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
You get like a few, like 5 shared terabytes amongst all of you, and it's $800 for 5 people. And if you want to add one more person, you got to call them up and start negotiating licensing. So, here's the problem with that is we are in media production, and by the very nature of our work, we are syncing very large files, and we need 2 things. We need fast transfer, and we need the ability to store large files for, a month or 2 and then discard them, or sometimes long term. And so I have been sort of trying to figure out how to roll my own solution to solve this problem, because everything out there is just really outside the scope of what we need. We don't need some of the things that Dropbox offers. We don't need to pay that price. And it's not really focused on media. So I started looking at SyncThing a few weeks ago. The first place I went was DigitalOcean. It's obvious if you want to control it yourself and have a really easy way to take snapshots before you make big changes and then roll back. If you want to have something you have complete control over that you can even control from your phone. And if you want to have something that's nice to move to another system, like another server, if you decide to go to a different location or make a copy of it, or one-click deploy another application on it, because really it is super easy. Over at DigitalOcean, I've got droplets that run Minecraft. I got droplets that run OwnCloud. I got droplets that run SyncThing and Quazzle. The list goes on and on. I've got droplets that run things that are sending me tons of messages right now. It's really awesome. They're all coming in through DigitalOcean droplets. And now I've got one running SyncThing, and I started doing that to sync my own passwords that are GPG encrypted between my local systems and then one system up in the cloud. I have a dedicated droplet for that. And it's really easy to get started. You can get started in less than 55 seconds, and the pricing plans are only $5 per month. With 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, 1 CPU, and a terabyte of transfer, you could easily get started with one of these systems, like Ghost or GitLab. Lots of things, especially if you start using Docker. Boy, it really gets cool. So if you wanted to roll your own syncing system, take a look at SyncThing. There are guides to get them set up on DigitalOcean, so it's really easy to get started. They have a great community. And their interface to manage your droplets is super intuitive, and power users can replicate it with their straightforward API that's really well documented. So use our promo code CODERDIGITAL when you check out, and you'll get a $10 credit. You support this show, keep us going, and you get to try out the DigitalOcean system. Coder Digital gives you a $10 credit. You can try to rig with no credit card required. Try SyncThing for a little bit. It's a really cool system. And there's also now some good graphical front ends. So on my desktops here in the studio, I have SyncThing GTK. And then on my Droplet, I have the regular SyncThing system, which uses a web interface to manage it. It's really cool. And because my connection on my DigitalOcean Droplet is really screaming fast, it's really fast. I get the files sent down to my system in no time. And you can kind of pick and choose and be pretty clever about where you put your Droplet, because they have locations in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, Germany, and a brand new one in Toronto. So I went for San Francisco because here in Washington, it's ridiculous. Like if I just want to ping something in Oregon, I still go down to San Francisco anyways. I don't understand why. Well, I do understand why. It's just really stupid. So I figure, actually, if I'm already taking the trip down to San Francisco anyways, well, might as well put the Droplet there because I'm going there anyways. So it actually works really well for transfer speed for me. And it makes for syncing large files like media production really fast. And that's what's really kind of opened my eyes up. DigitalOcean is so cool. Go to DigitalOcean.com and use the promo code CODERDigital. And a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. All right, Mr. Dominic. Oh, okay, so I kind of dropped a little hint bomb there, and when I said one of the platforms I think they can get away on, we're really keeping things all looking the same and generic, is probably wearables, because the restrictions are there. And, the restrictions are so high that I now have 3 watches that I have tested. I have the LG Watch R, the Apple Watch, and the original Pebble, and now I have the new Pebble Time Steel, or whatever it's called. Been trying them all out, and it is fascinating what they managed to get done with their limitations. And I just looked down at my wrist right now, and I just realized I'm not wearing any of them.
Yeah,
so
neither am I.
I've been spending a lot of time thinking about this. So anything you want to talk about, I'm open to. So where do you want to start?
First of all, my Moto 360 is sitting right here, not on my wrist and dead. So yay. I'm at a pivot point here. Like Jared from Pied Piper. No one? Okay. I have a few watch prototype for Android Wear apps ready to go just about. But I don't think I'm going to release them.
Really?
Mainly because I don't think there's a lot of movement on Android Wear.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just take a quick trip down to the Google Play Store, shall we? And see, the top Wear apps and see how much they've changed.
Yeah. Okay, what do you got? Let's take a look.
Right, let's take a look.
Let's take a little journey.
Let's take a journey. Let me see. I can't find them. How do you find Wear apps?
Well, you have to go. In Android, you launch the Android Wear app.
Yeah, but what if I'm browsing, which is the best feature of Android? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, not featured. Right. Okay. I don't get a lot of use out of it. And I don't think anybody does.
What about the fitness stuff? Any use out of that? Do you care about any of that stuff?
But only when I go to the gym, right? I slap the watch on, go to the gym, get the figures, and I'm done. Although I could get Galaga for my Android watch, so I might do that.
So I'll tell you, I thought the fitness stuff would be pretty good for me. But then I went on a road trip where I sat a lot and pretty much just blew out all my stats and just really, I don't know, I just kind of lost interest in that because it's just a mess. Now they don't make any sense now, and all my trends have been thrown off. So I kind of lost interest in that. And then there's the only functionality I have consistently used on a wearable is consistently used is actually there's 3 things, I guess. Is muting or remote muting, which is actually very handy, including pausing media playback. So like if I'm listening to a podcast through my phone.
Yes, use that a lot. Yep.
Locating the phone, like making it ping or something like that. When I lost it or it slipped into the couch and I don't know which couch it slipped into, I can ping the phone. I've found that to be pretty handy. And then the third one actually turns out to be kind of just a surprise use case that works better for me with the Apple Watch than anything else. But the LG Watch R should be able to do this pretty well too. It just never seemed to. Is my vehicle has Bluetooth integration, but it's like really stupid Bluetooth integration where anytime I activate the microphone on the phone, it thinks I'm in an active call and it goes into call mode.
Oh,
And
sure,
like
sure.
it's delayed and it causes the system not to hear me, and it misses the first few words and then it misses the last few words, and then the system has to call ended. And so one of the nice things is I can use the watch, and the watch microphone is independent of the phone's microphone, and I can use the Siri system or the OK Google system, and I can give it my command, and then it eventually executes that command on the phone, which in most cases is navigate me to this place. And, that's something that's kind of nice to be able to just raise my wrist and say that without having to take my eyes off the road at all. And then in a few minutes, well, in a few seconds, really, I'm now getting voice nav over my Bluetooth without me ever having to look at my phone. So that's the three things that I use the watch for, and I really don't use any apps on it other than that.
Yeah, so my problem's even dumber. It died once, and I just failed to charge it for a week.
Yeah,
I mean, the Moto 360, I love it, but it's not very forgiving.
Where I'm currently staying at is a bit of a drive from the studio. And it gets dark early here, so I'm like, I think I'm going to crash at the studio tonight because I have to do some shows early tomorrow morning. And I'm like, well, maybe I will just sleep here. Okay, so I get everything, and I'm getting in the truck, and I'm like, oh, okay, I don't have the watch charger. Don't care. And I just kept on going, like, doesn't really matter. It's going to be fine. I can go a day without that watch. I completely cannot go a day without the phone. Phone's like you forget it, you go back for it.
You forget it, you turn around. Yeah, you take the next exit and you turn around. Yeah.
So does that mean it's never going to go anywhere?
I don't know. I mean,
is it a matter of not enough resources? I'll tell you where okay. So let's take the watch and now give it GPS and full LTE connectivity. So you don't need the phone at all. Now all of a sudden, aren't you going to want tons of the versions of apps you have on your phone available on your watch? Isn't the core problem with the watch that you have to have connectivity back to the phone? And if you could have a full podcast player on your watch, if you could have a full Spotify client or whatever, Beats or what, I don't care. Whatever you kids use. If you could have a full-fledged messaging client, like a full-on Telegram client, or Skype even, or whatever the hell, WhatsApp, no phone required, then all of a sudden, my watch just became a hell of a lot more useful. At the same time, I don't want to pay a separate data fee for that, and most people are in some sort of contract plan where they're going to have to actually go get in some sort of monthly plan in order to have LTE connectivity on their watch, which is ridiculous. So I don't know if I see it unless those things can be completely self-independent. And the battery and CPU and chipset required to do that has got to be way up more off than what we think, because I've seen some of the Samsung watches that do it, and it's not that impressive yet.
Yeah, so I've been, really thinking a lot about this. I got Sherlocked with my little golf thing. Thanks again, Google. But even then, right, the problem with, and this may be because I'm just using a first-gen Moto 360, so maybe you can tell me that newer watches are better. Anytime I actually use it, the battery just goes, right? Because ideally, what I think you would want with a wearable is...
It does get better.
As you go up market?
Yeah, it does a little bit.
Okay.
Like the LG Watch R, I get a day and a half. And that's even, and I get a good solid day if I even use the always on screen. So it's always on, literally. So it's better on there. And, the Apple Watch, I legitimately go 2 days without charging. So it's better there. And then same with the Pebble. Pebble Watch is really good too. Everybody says,
so you're just saying that my particular Android Wear watch is terrible, basically.
Well, it's not the worst. I think there's probably, there's some Samsungs that get about that too, but yeah.
Right. Okay, so that's possible, right? But then my next question would be, okay, so first of all, what's the market penetration of Android Wear? Not great.
Tanjutsu in the chat room makes a really super important point. He says, I have a Pebble, and even the notifications are a poor experience. Phone buzzes in pocket and then on my wrist. And I want to just stop there for a second. So not only that, so especially on the Pebble, the phone gets the notification first, and so you always hear about it, and then the Pebble is just like a nuisance. Like I already know watch. Now in the Apple scenario, one of the things, and I don't know exactly how this works, but sometimes my watch will bust or will wrist. It'll buzz or ding on its own, and the screen doesn't even light up or vibrate on the iPhone. Like nothing happens on the iPhone at all. Like, which in some way is actually kind of nice because that preserves battery life on the phone because it's not firing up the screen to show the notification. Because it knows that I'm connected to my watch, and it knows that the watch is on me because the Apple Watch is aware of when it's on you or off you. And it's like, okay, you're getting the notification there. I don't need to give you a notification over here. It's more intelligent about that. And the other nice thing about the Apple Watch versus the Pebble or the LG Watch R is, and this is both versions of the Pebble, is the Apple Watch has a legitimate vibe in it that is actually really quite pleasant. It doesn't feel cheap. You know, it's not like
Right.
when I have my Pebble in my cup holder of my truck and it vibrates, it sounds like it's, it's just this really crazy sound. And I don't know really how to describe it, but that also bothers me because not only is it late, but it's like this cheap kind of feel to it too. So it's just really just kind of a disappointment.
I have never seen a Pebble Watch in the wild.
Oh, I have. It's plenty of conferences and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, here's actually, you know what? And here I want to take a second and I want to defend Pebble because I actually think in some ways, and that's why I was a little disappointed to see the Pebble Round because the Pebble Round is kind of going away from this. Pebble with the black and white screen, or now they have color, but with the reduced battery life screen and their approach, you get a longer battery life. They have a couple of physical buttons that are nice to have consistently, and it sort of embraces the best of a limited platform because it is so limited in the way that it is. What it does is more refined, and it's better at it. So if you just accept the fact that these are fancier ways to tell time and not revolutionary computing platforms, if you throw out that idea and say this is just a better watch, a watch that does more, I actually think the Pebble's ground-up approach is way more applicable to the device usage. A couple of reasons for that. To be honest with you, I'm not even that active of a person, and all of a sudden it became extremely inconvenient to have watches that were not quite safe to take underwater. Because summertime came around, turns out I want to go swimming, but I don't want to lose my health stats and stuff like that if I'm trying to track all that crap. Well, Pebble Watch is great for that. Turns out, no problem. If I want to go camping and I don't want to bring a charger or I don't have power, turns out Pebble Watch, great for that. If I want to just go a few days without having to think about it, Pebble Watch is good for that. If I just want something that all they can really do is dismiss notifications anyways because no apps actually do decent jobs of implementing their version of the app on the watch and really all you get to do with all these things is just dismiss notifications, well, guess what? Pebble's got a dedicated button for that. So that's pretty much what I use it for. And then at the end of the day, I need something with a mic. Well, the new Pebble's got that, so that's not bad. So it really kind of, and it has decent battery life. It has decent performance. It checks all the boxes, and it costs well, not the least. I think you can get some Android Wear watches for cheaper now, but it costs a very reasonable amount. It always has. I just don't think they're going in a good direction. I think they're losing their way. But I think what I like about the Pebble Watch the most is it embraces the limitations of being an actual watch. And here's another nice thing. It actually always displays the time.
Right, but at that point, wouldn't I just get a watch? I mean, here's the thing. Maybe we're looking for different things in this then. I'm expecting, like if I'm going to launch a wearables app, right? Because that's really what we're talking about here. It's got to somehow be able to cleanly take advantage of the fact that, one, it's a watch, right? So it's on your body 10, 14 hours a day. So part of that means it needs to be alive for 14 hours. And I get the Pebble has, better battery, better
yeah,
battery
but
profile.
I think their new round one doesn't actually. The one that the new one they're promoting.
Well, my other point would be like, I can't really see the benefit as a developer in jumping all on Pebble when I see Apple Watch and to be honest, WatchOS, right? Apple Watch seems to be the safest bet, but it's also extremely limited. And I think you can do some really interesting things are possible on Android Wear. But, it's almost the same thing with the Android phones. The APIs are very interesting. Google's philosophy gives you a lot of latitude, but the hardware just isn't there. And of course there is good hardware, but my crappy old Gen 1 Moto 360 that I'm holding now is still super rare, right? People just don't have these. So you're saying that, some of the issues I'm saying would be less on newer, greater devices. How rare are those, right? How many people have it? And even if they do, you make a great point. I love to listen to Pocket Casts on my Wear watch. Well, everything goes to hell if I walk out of range of my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And
The Wi-Fi stuff never works if that watch
it worked. Yeah, it works, but it kicks out, and then things pause, and I have to stop what I'm doing.
Or if you have one watch that for some reason, even though it has a Wi-Fi chip in it, didn't get the update that gives it Wi-Fi capability, like mine.
I really, really feel like if you're going to develop software for wearables, the hardware you're targeting needs to last the entire day, and you need to be able to get really interesting metrics out of it. I have not found and I can't really speak for WatchOS because I haven't done a lot with that yet, but on Android Wear, I haven't found the instruments that return data on the person, right? The guy wearing the watch, remember him, the user?
Yeah.
To be terribly consistent.
Oh.
Now, this could be a hardware thing. That's why I'm asking you about yours. It could be that I do have what is effectively a first generation. I got it for like 70 or $50 or whatever it cost me. It was super cheap. I bought it. It was already old. But does that mean we're in another case of you can develop great software for, again, Google Android, but you're going to be reliant on your users to hopefully upgrade on their own, which really means buy new hardware?
And buy the right hardware, the stuff that's, because the thing that scares me about Android Wear is it seems like if it could really drive down to the really cheap, like crappy giveaway type watches and things like that could just be real junk.
Well, Fossil's now coming out with Android Wear watches, the Fossil watch company. I have a Fossil watch myself, like a traditional watch. But do I think Fossil's going to update the software on their Android Wear watches?
Well, I guess it follows now. Google's doing this a little differently, right? This time around, they're playing this game just a little slightly smarter when it comes to what they're allowing the OEMs to do. So they might be able to reliably push down updates for a while.
But do you know that? I mean,
I don't know. No, I don't.
Because my understanding is that the hardware manufacturers can still do their own customizations.
See, I suppose it really doesn't. So here's the thing: is it ambiguous? Yes, it's ambiguous. We don't know. So, and is it ambiguous with the Apple Watch? No, it is not. Is it ambiguous with the Pebble? No, not really. It is kind of with Android Wear. You're right. We don't really know.
Right.
Even if there probably are some people, but it's complicated. That makes me uncomfortable, actually.
Right, and the other aspect of this, and I'll get off because I know this has probably been an Android-heavy show.
How dare you?
And we need to go anyway. Dare I say it, are we recreating the Android fragmentation with a capital F problem on Watch? But in a different form, instead of it just being like OS versions, you kind of slyly made the assertion that my watch is just kind of crappy. Right?
Like, me? No.
Well, yes, right, because I can't get the day-long battery life that I need. I can't.
I think it's just a symptom of an early generation of the It was an early generation of Android Wear.
I'm hoping you're right.
Moto 360. Well, I'm not here to say it's gotten a lot better.
Right, that's the problem. I mean, I'm looking. Where are these marquee Android Wear apps? Although on the same token, where are the marquee Apple Watch apps? Can you name 5?
No, I've never even, there's, it's only the built-in stuff, really.
Yeah, I can't think of anything. I mean, it's, and I'll even put the last thing and then we can go. Can you name any apps that are driven primarily by their wearable experience, not where the wearable is just a more convenient notification hub? For the phone app.
No, I mean, I could see some in the future, but I don't know of any right now. Maybe there are some. Maybe people could let us know. Because it sounds like you're ready to pull the plug on something.
Yes, I'm afraid this one's not making it out of the matrix.
I'd like to know what people think. I don't know. All right, well, let me tell you about before we go. And actually, I wanted to get at least one bit of feedback.
Go ahead.
So first, I'll tell you about Linux Academy. In fact, go over to linuxacademy.com/coders. Go give them a visit, linuxacademy.com/coders. Go take a look because they've just rolled out a ton of great new features, especially some systems that if you have trouble taking exams or you want to know if you're doing something and get immediate feedback. So in other words, go through the process and get immediate feedback when you're making the wrong choice, make a mistake and not have to wait for the results. They've got some really cool stuff I want you to check out. Go over to linuxacademy.com/coders. Then go click around. Linux Academy is a system built around Linux, and all of the great platforms around Linux. A lot of stuff that moving forward I think is probably going to become essential technologies, really kind of has become essential technologies, which has kind of been fascinating since Linux Academy has been a sponsor, watching how fundamental more and more of this stuff has become. Things like containers, things like Linux and Nginx, things like ZFS, Python, Ruby, all of this stuff that really is just now essential stuff that you just need a great place you can trust to go to. Not a place that is just a one-fix solution for everything where they just have all these courses and this is a checkbox we check. Yeah, this is a checkbox. But a place that's really enthusiastic and passionate about this, constantly evolving the platform, making it better and better, especially for the type of students that this platform caters to. All HTML5 players, a great new CDN to make sure the content distributes fast, downloadable comprehensive study guides you can listen to on your own, the self-paced courses that come with instructor help when you need it, over 1,900 videos. That is an incredible resource and asset. Scenario-based labs, when you go in there too, you choose the Linux distribution you want, 7+ distros to choose from. It automatically adjusts the courseware and the virtual machines that they spin up. Same distro, all matches across the board. Really cool too if you're moving between distros. What a great way to just sort of refresh your skill set and jump right in. When you work in their lab environments, you go through scenarios from beginning to end. And these environments are these are live servers, so you can go try out your work and see what it's really like to work with the technology and the software, so that when you go do it in production, it's not your first time. And I think it's a big deal. I want to underscore the fact that they have instructor help available. So you're not just off on your own. And they have a community that's stacked full of Jupiter Broadcasting members to help you along. linuxacademy.com/coders is constantly getting better. They've got great new features they're rolling out. I'd love for you to go check them out. Go to linuxacademy.com/coders, and a big thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. Now, we do have a little love for Android today, thanks to Linux Academy for sponsoring this episode, but we're going to now transition to the love portion of the Coder Radio program, and that brings us over to the Buccaneer Tech blog, buccaneer.io, and a pro tip by one Mr. Michael Dominic.
Hello again, Mr. Fisher. I'm the editor there, sorry. So we have a pro tip. Now, people have been complaining about not enough code.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, so what do we got here? Some code?
So do you know
Zoom in and hence
that Android uses the excellent Gradle build system?
Well, I am somewhat familiar with this, yes. And right. I know that it makes it fairly flexible. Excuse me.
So one of the really common things you want to do is, right, I need to know, is this a debug or a release build? Because you might want to change an API endpoint. You might want to change, if you do some additional tracking, if you return, one common thing is maybe you put up a toast message, right, using the toast notification system in debug, but not release.
Okay.
Well, using the BuildConfig class and the Gradle, the .gradle file for your APK, you can actually do that. Pretty simple. If build.debug, bam, else, bam.
Oh, that is surprisingly refreshingly straightforward.
That's it. Let's see, the way I write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines of code, and you're done. And it's really just one if else.
Well, there you go. And we actually have a link right there to it, too.
We have a link right there, but we can get a little fancier.
Okay.
And this isn't. Now, I'd say, if you want to really see this out, go to buccaneer.io. It's the most recent post. It's great. Just check it out. There's code. It's nicely formatted. You can also set custom variables.
Yeah.
In your .gradle file. Now, let's talk about a scenario you might have, Chris. Maybe you're trendy. You're reaching over the ocean to the great land of China.
Ooh, that sounds like something I would do.
But, maybe, the Android localization stuff it's just not doing it for you, Chris. Mm-hmm. And you want a totally different binary for China.
That sounds, and plus it's got to be rooted for the Chinese government. I'm with you.
We were so close to positivity.
No, I was with you. No, I'm with you.
Maybe, for instance, you're going on one of these funny third-party Chinese app stores and you want a different APK.
Right.
Who knows? Maybe you're worried your APK will get cracked.
Maybe for some reason you have one APK for the Amazon store and you have one APK for the Play Store. I don't know.
You could, right?
I'm not going to judge.
Like that.
I could definitely see you'd want one for an internal distribution, one for external distribution, or something like that.
And maybe you need to set, I don't know, due to crazy laws, crazy import laws, maybe you're making a game, right? Did you know in China, in video games, you cannot show skeletons?
What? No.
Yeah, you can't. No, you really can't. Or you used to not be able to. I don't know if it's still true.
That's a
Just
funny
go with
thing.
me, all right?
Okay, I'm with you.
In the build Gradle for the Chinese-only APK, you could put a debug, a string, but let's just go to debug. I'm a Boolean kind of guy, right? I'm sorry, a Boolean. Could say, is China?
Sure.
And only that build of the APK would have that set to true. And in your code, let's say you're doing a game, you can switch. A sprite-based game. I'm sure we all know how this works, right? You have sprite.
Right.
Switch the sprite sheets for China.
Yeah.
To put flesh on your skeletons,
or bananas or something,
or chapped. No, never mind. We're gonna go with assless chaps, but I don't know about that. Easy.
Yeah.
You don't need anything crazy. It is one line in your build.gradle. Let's scroll down here. It is just build config, quote Boolean, comma some var, whatever your var is, comma whatever if it's true or false. That's it.
I love that.
And if it doesn't exist, it's always false. Done. This wasn't an impressive segment. This was just easy, save you a lot of time. I know my Chinese skeleton example is a little lame, but I'm sure if you're an Android developer, you probably have some use for this. If you're just learning Android, I hope it helps.
Yeah. I actually kind of like it. I think it's pretty straightforward. And not only that, well documented up on the Buccaneer.io. That's pretty handy. That's pretty handy. You might get with some of that, you might get some Google juice too. You never know.
Love the Google juice. And I plan to do this at least twice a month now. We're going to have little pro tips. Very simple. We're not trying to show off. We're not trying to impress people, but little things that might make, because you could see, Chris, how if you didn't have this ability using the .gradle file to just set these variables, you could get some pretty convoluted code, right? You could get some pretty annoying stuff you're doing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like that. This is nice and simple and straightforward.
Yeah, straightforward.
Coderradio.reddit.com if you want to submit your own. Okay, Mr. Dominic, I'm going to jump right into the feedback because I think it's only appropriate.
All right, pick your favorite one, and we will do just one.
Okay, all right. My favorite one I don't think he's here today, unfortunately, because we could use help with titles. But our first one comes in from Mr. JB Hawk of Truth, and he had a Coder Radio follow up. He says, Mike, the competition for the standalone indie app market is fierce, where one-man shops and hobbyists have the lowest operating costs, especially if their or their spouse has a 9-to-5 income that can subsidize some of the costs. Hard to compete unless your app is so large it's beyond their capacity. Apps on that scale are really enterprise-focused. And there's still a great margin in the enterprise space, whereby the mobile app is part of a larger product that a business would buy. Expenses and travel systems are the two obvious ones. Check out staffing agencies. Mobile devs are a premium with nice 12 to 18-month contracts. Those positions don't seem to come with some the same credential prejudices that as some of the back-end developer positions do. It'll be interesting to see if Marco continues the patronage model. I wonder if there's another workable business model out there. The kickstarted features. The app internally lists upcoming or sought-after features with a dollar amount that will tip it. Customers get to prioritize things they need or want to see the direct value. Cheers, JB Hawk of Truth. So, Mr. Dominic, something I want to pull out. It's interesting that he mentions, he's totally right about the gap there in the budget. He talks about where standalone indie app market is fierce, where one-man shops and hobbyists have the lowest operating costs, especially if they have a spouse with a 9-to-5 income. And then there's a gap up to enterprise. But what I wanted to talk about, he talks about kickstarted features and an app list that internally lists that always lists upcoming or sought-after features with a dollar amount. What do you think of the bounty source sort of perpetual, like this feature will cost this amount?
Didn't open source try that, right? Remember GitTip?
I do, yeah. GitTip is one, yeah.
I mean, I'm not a huge believer in all.
Well, there was also what was the other tip one that was going on for a while that came out? Shoot.
I don't remember. There's been a few though, right?
Yeah, it started with an F. I'm totally Flare or something, I think. And then there's also still actively Bounty Source, where there are some large projects on here, like including Facebook has some projects on here, Elementary OS has projects on here, IBM has some projects on here, and OwnCloud has projects on here, and they have bounty sources. Do you think this is doable? Do you think it's reasonable? Or does it sort of lock you down too much into a certain design path, a certain feature path too? You know what I mean? Like it sort of locks you down because you have to put out there what the features are, A, and B, if people pay for it, they kind of have to do it.
Right. And my other thing is one, are you, I really don't believe in the whole donation model as a general thing. And isn't this just doing a donation model without, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't feel like something that is going to work for a wide group of people, right? For the vast majority.
And the other thing is, okay, here's the other problem. What happens 2 years down the road or a year down the road when the app becomes feature complete? Because people, been jumping on. And now the biggest and most boldest feature is compatibility update for OS updates and platform changes. And compatibility updates or security fixes. And these are just not super sexy, going to generate a lot of money kind of bounties.
Well, and a major update of the OS comes out and you have to do 40, 50 man hours of work to stay compatible. Is anyone going to pay you for that? Or aren't you just back in the old, I have to charge enough from my users to, sustain this?
Yeah, exactly. That to me seems to be...
I don't think it's all doom and gloom. There are business models from software that make sense.
Yeah.
I like the idea of targeting enterprise. It's something I'm actively thinking about. But I kind of, and we don't want to hammer on this. We talk about this a lot. But my thinking has sort of evolved if you have to make a decision between, $3.50 and $5, you're probably having the wrong conversation. Right. And the chat room has a great point. Yeah, no one would pay you to update to iOS 9, right? Because you have to do that anyway. So really, you have to have a sound business model to begin with. And just kind of, there's a great line I heard somewhere called running up the Apple treadmill. And this isn't just for iOS apps, but it came to my
No, because I was even thinking Linux updates, like the desktop updates, and you have to update.
Ubuntu 15 whatever is coming out soon, right? It's 15.10, right?
Yeah. Just came out. Just reviewed that on Sunday. Not bad.
How about 2 years ago when Unity came out, and how much of a wreck was that? If you wanted to, sure, your GTK app is compatible, but don't you want to be spiffy and new?
If you want to be hip,
right? Which is, to be honest, one of the reasons I keep pulling the plug on these projects is I don't want to do vaporware, right? I don't want to throw something out there and not have a roadmap for it.
Yeah, what's the long-term plan here? Is this going to be something that when it's taking my time, it's going to also be giving me enough to make it sustainable, or is it just going to be taking my time?
Right. Having said that, something does have to ship at some point, just saying. So
yeah, yeah, there is that too. All right, Mr. Dominic, well, it is time for us to ship along.
It is indeed.
So here's what I got pro tips over there for the folks. I want them to visit coderradio.reddit.com. They can submit topics or feedback for episode 176, coderradio.reddit.com. Or you can email us, go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact and choose Coder Radio from the drop-down. Mr. Dominic, is there anywhere you'd like to send people throughout the week?
Go to Buccaneer.io. There's a great pro tip for Android devs.
There you go. Oh, yeah, we had a pro tip, yes. We have that linked in the show notes as well as my picture of the skeuomorphic design. It's horrible. It's horrible. JupiterBroadcasting.com for those. JupiterBroadcasting.com/calendar for our live time. We stream at jblive.tv Mondays at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in this week's episode of Coder Radio. See you right back here next week.